All right.
So the movie recording gives you the amount of megabytes you're at. See that on the it's a screen recording option.
Tells you?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
She's dabbing.
Dang.
Oh.
Okay, dude, hold on. Hey, listen, can I call you back? Because we're going to be recording our podcast.
We're recording now.
Are we really?
Yeah.
What?
It's
Okay, love ya.
You use this. This is good.
Bye.
yeah. That's how we start every show.
That's right.
Okay.
And we're back again. It's the Sustainable Ministry Show. This is episode 39. Where's your bat signal?
Hey everybody, we are back again with the Sustainable Ministry Show. And as you can see, we're in beautiful sunny Florida for our Ministry Architect Staff Retreat. And surprise, surprise, we told you that Melissa Rao would not be here with us, but she is. So I thought we're in a different setting, we're in a different place. We've had a lot of fun together this week. I thought it'd be really cool to share with our friends kind of our background and our stories. I don't know how we can each do that in about 2 minutes. But I'm wondering, how did y'all get in ministry? How did you find your life of faith and what that journey looks like? Where did all that start for you guys?
The 2-minute version. All right. So, yeah, that's all we really need. Yeah, for me, when I was 14, I had a major trauma happen in my life with my family. One that affects me even today. That I think about it probably every day. And the short of it is that there was a youth minister named Seth, who I write about in Organic a couple of times, who was there for me, and a youth group who was there for me, and a church who was there for me, and who, through that whole process, really helped me realize and embrace a call into ministry. And then, and here's the most profound part, they gave me a place to practice it. They gave me a place to practice that call and to live out that call with a lot of grace.
Wow.
And they encouraged me, they helped me, they loved me, and by the time I was 16, I knew what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And it was because of those people that were just there for me after a major trauma. So,
were you clear at 16 that it was youth ministry? Like that's where you were headed?
Yeah, at 16, there was no doubt. And it was because of the way those people were there for me. I thought, with what I'm learning from this experience, I know other kids go through the same kind of pain, if not even more. And I know what they did for me. And I knew that I had been to that dark place. And if I had been in that dark place and been able to come out, maybe I could help guide kids out of that place as well. And so I kind of saw myself as a guide for people, not to immediately pull out of dark places, but to be able to sit in that place, and then when it's time to guide them out and walk with them on that journey. So I did that for 18 years.
Wow. Did that, I'm curious then, because if you knew in high school, did that kind of throw your college trajectory or help you make a college choice based on?
Yeah. Before there was zero doubt I was going to go into law school and go into politics, because that's something I still deeply love.
Really?
Yeah.
Vote
Kinda.
for Steven.
But yeah, at that point, I knew that I wanted to be a religion major. I'd always loved studying the Bible and theology anyways. And so I made the choice very clear. I applied to one school, Sanford University in Birmingham. They had a great religion program and won the top in the country. And so I applied there. I got in, got full scholarship, and went. Yeah, set it all up.
The rest is history. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
What about you, Melissa?
Oh gosh. So my grandfather was an Episcopal minister, and so I grew up in the church. Unfortunately, he passed away when I was about 6, and ironically, my family had been considering moving outside of Philadelphia anyway, so we moved to the suburbs. And gosh, I just remembered always having a profound, deep connection to the divine, and I was always mesmerized by it. I was always in touch with my spiritual self. I know I'm talking like, I was 6, right? But it was always magical to me. I was always like, I never ever doubted. And even throughout my adolescent days, I've never doubted. I've never doubted that there was a God, that Jesus was my savior. I never doubted any of that. And when I was about 7 or 8 years old, there was one woman who ironically lived in our community who did this kind of vacation Bible school-ish type of thing in her house. And her name was Beth. And she just invited all of the little kids, and I ended up being her chief recruiter to pack her living room filled with kids, and it would be once a week type of thing. And she was amazing. And I mean, I would even forego going to birthday parties on Saturday morning so I could walk to Beth's house and sit with her. And I would walk to her house in the rain, and sometimes it would just be she and I across from each other. And I'll never forget. Now, of course, she was, I think, Southern Baptist or non-denominational, and Episcopal theology and that type of theology was not necessarily similar, but we were all like talking about the same stuff. And so they use saving language, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, mainline denominations really put a lot of weight of that on baptism and living out a faithful journey and confirming that when you're in high school-ish or whatever, really. But I hit my knees at the top of my steps when I was 7 years old, and I said the prayer welcoming Jesus Christ into my heart. And so I've kind of had this eclectic background. I was very, had a lot of Baptist influence on my life, especially in the teenage years, and I'm just ever grateful for Beth. And here's the sad thing, y'all. I don't even know if she knows the impact that she had on my life and my faith and my perseverance and whatnot. It was just phenomenal. So when we talk about children's and youth ministry being so darn important, I know my family was faithful. My grandfather lived it. He was a vocational priest, and I'm just so grateful for those other adults in my life who seemingly didn't have to care but did. So there you go.
I love it. I love hearing stories. I think sometimes people feel like their faith stories or faith journeys are not like the big ones, where you went this way and now you're this way.
Yeah.
And those seem to get a lot of attention. But the stories of like, this has been my faith all along.
Yeah.
I think we need to hear those more.
Yeah.
And hear about that more.
And I think especially in youth ministry, it's important to help kids who have that kind of story, who have the normal story, right? Embrace that story as a profound work of God's grace, because a lot of times they kind of feel like their faith is in the shadow because they didn't have a major trauma, or because they didn't hit rock bottom, because they weren't addicted to 10 different kinds of things that God didn't do as great a work in their life. And it's just right the opposite. God's been doing a great work in their life
all along,
the whole way.
Walter Brueggemann does a lot. I mean, if you don't know who Walter Brueggemann is, look him up, because he's just profoundly, amazingly deep and connected, and an amazing theologian. He does a lot of work in the Old Testament, especially the Psalms. He wrote many books, one of them called Praying the Psalms. And he talks about three different things. He talks about orientation, which is kind of connecting with, what's usual, what's normal, and orienting yourself into that. And then he talks about disorientation. Disorientation is really kind of things where you're disrupted, that you've had a big blow, and now you don't even know the lay of the land anymore. You're kind of figuring out it might be considered some valley time, if you know what I mean. And then eventually you come out into reorientation, where you're finding the new normal. And so honestly, I don't think I've had many disorientation periods in time of my life. I've never questioned my faith. I mean, let me tell you, I've had valley times for sure, but I don't think my faith has ever been affected. So I don't know. Maybe I'm a freak. I don't know.
I think it's great. So good. What about you, Bryant?
Yeah, for me, my parents were both pastors, so I grew up in the Methodist Church, and Sunday was never an option. Bible stories were never an option. Sunday school was never an option. That's just what we did until we moved to Tampa. And I was probably 7th grade, so maybe 12, 13 years old. And most of my friends didn't go to church at that point. And there was some sense of embarrassment for me to be able to say, like, when they said, "Oh, what do your parents do?" I was like, they work in a church, pastors. And there was everybody else didn't go, and so it was different, and it felt weird. And so I'll tell you a story. I had a friend, Sean, we're Facebook buddies now. His family didn't go to church. He lived in the neighborhood, and so I would start staying with him on Saturday night. And I ran as fast as I could away from the church at this point. So I would tell my parents, "Yeah, I'm going with Sean's family to church." I didn't go to church.
Oh my goodness.
So one Sunday afternoon, my mom knocked on the door, and I'm getting my stuff together, and she's going to pick me up, and Sean's mom answers to the door. And so there's this little conversation taking place, and my mom says, "Oh, so by the way, what church is it y'all go to?" And she goes, I could hear from down the hall, she goes, "We don't go to church." I was like, crap.
The gig is up.
How old were you at this point?
Probably 13.
Oh my goodness.
14 maybe.
Yeah, you knew.
I knew. And at that point, Sunday was not an option again.
No, Saturday night was not an option.
Saturday night was not an option.
Eventful.
And I still fought it. I hated every moment of it, because it just was a sense of me that, like, this was not the place I'm supposed to be. But all along, other things were happening. And so I was having these encounters with other people, And because they were connected to the Methodist Church, I had this connection to the Methodist camp.
Mhm.
And during summer, when I would go to the camp, it was like kind of a reality, a place of reality for me. To interact with other people. And actually, the best man at my wedding, Joel, it was a time where I walked in and he was sitting down doing a devotion. It was by himself. Like, no one directed it. No one asked him to do it. It was just his. And I sat down beside him. I said, tell me about this. Like, what's happening? Tell me about this. And through a series of terrible, fortunate events, I began to get the sense of like, okay, I need to work with teenagers because I've been in this place that's really uncomfortable, that I don't understand. And if I can help people get through that, because I know I'm not the only one, that's what I want to do. And then God being at work through all of that, quickly found my way back into the church.
Yeah. So do you feel like this is it for you? You've found your calling and you're living into it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I knew it then. I just didn't know it was in the church.
Well, and what I hear you say too is because your parents' faith identity was so not only strong, but it was so public. You probably lived in the shadow of that for so long, and then at that moment when you walk in and you see your friend having their own faith identity that's independent, because I like what you said about that. He was in there, it was not directed, he was doing it on his own. It's almost like it was the first time you saw someone owning their own faith identity that was a contemporary of yours. And it spurred you to think, oh, maybe I can have my own faith identity outside of my parents.
So does that mean, do you raise your kids any differently because of the way
No kids,
your parents...
Melissa.
Oh, that's right.
We're,
I'm like, what am I thinking of?
We've got enough for everybody.
I know. No, but
we're in talks.
okay, but so you are.
You're in negotiations.
I knew this. But will you,
Oh, that's awesome.
if you're blessed with children, do you think you will raise them in a way that's any different because of your experience and the way your faith was formed or you came to where you are?
Yeah, I think we'll model it a little bit differently. I think we'll interact with them differently. So I say Sunday was never an option, but we were never in church with our parents.
Right.
Like we weren't in the pews with them. We weren't walking through the halls with them. Especially my dad. He was preparing to preach. He doesn't have time in that moment. At least then wasn't able to make the time in the moment to be able to escort us to Sunday school. And that was a few years ago too. So we just kind of like ran around like we owned the place.
Well, and you say that though, and I kind of have this fear because I have 3 children. The eldest is 16, the youngest is 10. And so when my husband, who is a priest, an Episcopal priest, he's doing the same thing. And when I'm not there, or when I might be serving at the altar alongside him, or reading, or liturgic, like reading the prayers with people, or liturgist, some form of up the front. It's kind of like, okay, what are we going to do with the kids? And so it's become a little bit of a challenge navigating that. And so did your parents serve together?
Occasionally, and then they got appointed to different churches.
Wow, that's a rough.
And my mom had worked in the conference office at one point, and so they were always kind of in different settings. And then when they were in different churches, my sister and I went to the church that had like young people our age in it. And I ended up going with my mom at that point, and 15 years old at this point, and still didn't really want to be there. And she was doing her thing, and I just interacted with like 2 or 3 folks. And during the week, I paid no attention to it.
It's fascinating. And it's so funny. So you guys had kind of things happen. You had things happening all along that kind of gave you this great epiphany. You kind of had some hardship or some type of disruptive event. So you guys have formed, and your vocation is strong. And I have to say, so maybe that's the reason why I'm still sitting here at the age I am, and I'm not telling you. But I'm
somewhere between 0 and.
I love doing what we're doing with Ministry Architects. That won't change, but it's kind of like, okay, I'm still going back and forth between discerning, am I called to be a layperson, or am I called to be a clergy person to seek ordination? And so I think that has been a discussion and a conversation I've been having in my head and with others since I was 16 years old.
Yeah, I think that's a good point for everybody who's listening to remember, no matter what age kids are, no matter where they seem to be on their journey, God is, what you were describing is this prevenient grace, right? That we talk about in the Methodist Church. That God was working these undercurrents, that there were movements that were below the surface, no one could really see or notice, but that as you look back, you can see the effects of it, right? And so I think that's just one of the most important things to just always remember is that there's movements underneath the surface.
Right,
and so,
you need to stop saying that word.
What, movements?
Movements?
Oh my gosh. Here's the problem when we have these retreats, is we all turn into those 13-year-olds. and it's not. It's good, and it's not.
I'm sorry. Back
But
to
there are
your
these
new book.
movements, not the kind of bowel movements, but
Oh
that's where
my
you were
gosh.
going. That's where
I'm
you're
just
going.
really- all right.
Don't try to live above the
Okay.
line now. We've gone below it. But there are these currents
I like
Does that make you feel
currents.
better?
Yes, it does.
that's happening. And we, I think part of our job as adults in the church, and especially as people who are vocationally in ministry, to be keenly aware of those currents and those movements underneath the surface.
It's great.
It's great. I would love to hear folks' stories. I just always love hearing folks' stories. When we're on site at churches and working with staff and pastors, and they have the opportunity to tell us kind of their journey. I just love hearing how people have arrived in those places. And certainly we would love to hear everybody's stories on the podcast. We probably don't have time for all of them.
At once.
At once.
That's right.
Sure.
But I would encourage folks, I wonder how y'all do this, but I would encourage folks to share their stories.
Yeah.
Sometimes, for me, there was a part of my story that felt embarrassing for a time. But it's a part of who I am today, and I wouldn't be who I am without all those different pieces, right? How can folks find the time? Where's the space to do that? Are there helpful things that we can encourage folks to do, even with the people they're working within the church, to help others just share their story, share their journey?
Yeah, I talk with folks. I try to teach this as a part of my work at the church I work at is to help folks understand that God's story is their story and their story is God's story.
Amen.
No matter what you believe about whether the canon is closed or not, the way I talk about it is the canon's still open. And in regards to the fact that God is still writing God's story through each of our lives. And so I found that it's helpful when I talk to folks about it like that, because there's almost this moment of revelation where they're like, oh my gosh, God is telling God's story through me. And so it kind of reframes how they look at their life. They start to see those undercurrents. They start to see major players. And I'll often encourage folks to think about it like an epic, like those epic movies, right? And watch for the plot lines, watch for the narratives, watch for the unexpected turns, and then watch for the scooping salvation that happens in those lowest moments. And our culture is so familiar with movies, and so to give folks that frame of reference, and then ask them to do that very thing. So name the major players. Who are the main characters in your story? What are the meta narratives? What are the overarching plot lines? And help them name that, and then let them start to write it out in that way.
Co-author.
Yeah, that's right. It's a really kind of beautiful exercise. So I try to help folks do it like that.
I love that. Great
too.
practice. I wish I could add anything.
Are you familiar with Joseph Campbell?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Joseph Campbell has the hero myth, right? And I will give. There's a cycle. It's a graphic that shows kind of the cycle of the hero. If you're familiar with the Odyssey, Odysseus's journey is a perfect example of this cycle. And so I'll give folks that a lot of times to sort of see how the story moves, and use that as an example of how their story might move. So I'd encourage you to look that up. Here, Joseph Campbell's hero's myth or hero's narrative, and that's been a really helpful tool that I've used with folks.
That's awesome.
You're a winner.
Chicken dinner.
Well, anyway, that was a great conversation.
Yeah, it was lovely. So, friends, although in maybe the next 18 hours you can find us in Florida, where else can people find you after this?
Yeah, I'd love for you to come and visit me over at www.12stonespirituality.com. You can get in touch with me there. I'd love to talk with you, as well as Stephen, STPHEN, at ministryarchitects.com.
Yeah, I love meeting people. So if you're ever around the Philadelphia area, want to look me up, I'd love to take you, out to lunch or
Cheesesteak.
coffee, cheesesteaks, whatever you name it. And if we're not in person, you can follow up with me on Facebook at Melissa Rao, Twitter Melissa Rao, and you can email
Tweet
me.
her.
Tweet me.
Or as my English-speaking Siri says, Melissa, R-A-U.
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 I'm also, you can email me at melissa@ministryarchitects.com.
So I'm curious. You said if you're in Philadelphia, come find me. Is it like a
No.
Melissa Rao bat signal?
No,
That's
no.
fine.
So if you're in New Jersey or maybe a little bit in New York and you're interested in reaching out, just give me a call or tweet at me.
I'm in Philly.
I'm Philly.
She
And I'm not actually in Philly, but I'm by Philly, whatever.
that's good.
Nice.
It's all good.
Nice.
And what about you, Bryant? Where can people find you?
Where can you find your bat
You can
signal,
find
Brian?
my bat signal.
When we're not in Florida.
And it's a town called Kernersville, North Carolina.
And where in that
There's-
town?
Just outside Winston.
GPS coordinates.
I
Please. So good.
got to stop tagging our location and Instagram now after this.
That's right.
You guys can email me at Bryant@ministryarchitects.com or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bryant Johnson. Or come check out what we're doing at the Postlude, which is weird because it's .de. Spell it all out, .de. And find us there. Thanks so much, you guys. It's been great.
Yay!
Yeah, awesome.
Ha ha!